When the provincial government said they wanted to investigate TransLink and rework the governance, the TransLink board said, if you do that, you absolutely have to look at the funding of TransLink because TransLink cannot work the way it's funded now. And we've made that very clear to the province and to the federal government. We only get occasional grants from the federal government. We don't get any sustainable funding. But if we were to get 5 cents of the gas tax, TransLink could do amazing things. But we're not getting a response from that from the provincial government.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so it's their fault. Most of the presenters had the idea that we should be, the city should be part of the deal and should have private-public partnerships. Where do you stand?
I think that this is something that I've been pretty passionate about. I went back to a conference in Toronto just a couple of weeks ago to hear all what other cities are doing, and I think the city should be more proactive. I think there are lots of benefits.
How more proactive?
Well, instead of just determining what the rules will be if somebody wants to put a transmitter up on a pole, we should actually decide how we could benefit as city operations from having wireless mesh around the city. And there are all sorts of examples from other cities, parking revenues, inspectors could have data access, the police could have access to closed circuit television, ambulances and all this. And we should be looking at that and then ask some private provider, because I don't think the city should get in the telecom business, to come up with a system.
Why shouldn't the city get involved in telecom systems?
I think it's too risky. I think that we don't know the telecom business. I mean, if you just think if we were providing wireless, we would have to have call centers. If you were at home and you couldn't pick it up, you'd have to get some sort of servicing. We'd have to, if a private provider then came in and said, we want to compete with you, and we know the business because we're in that business, and they undercut us, we would get hung out to dry and lose a lot of money for the taxpayers. So most other cities have said, here are the terms we want, here's what we want to get out of it, who can provide it, and we'll pick the best deal.
The government is not an expert in any of the technologies. You as an individual are perhaps not an expert on transit. You're a director of the TransLink, but all you do is set policy and hire the experts. Couldn't the city do the same thing for wireless internet?
Well, that's what we are doing. It's just that the experts will be contracted to us instead of being on our staff.
Mm-hmm. Fredericton, I think, is one of the cities in Canada that the City Hall decided to take the enterprise and own it and operate it. If they do it, why can Vancouver not do it?
Fredericton wasn't just a city. It was also the university, the hospitals, the police, the fire, and a bunch of other organizations. And they got a payback from being the first city in North America to do it. And so they got some branding and some recognition that way. It's no longer, that payback is no longer available. And most other cities now...
I'm sorry, what's the payback? I don't
quite understand. Payback is that you get a benefit for your city, getting a reputation as a center of innovation and all of that. So it's worth the city putting out some money to get that and attract businesses that are impressed by that.
There was a presentation of the Vancouver Economic Development Commission. Can you just tell us very briefly a little bit about that commission? Who are they and what exactly are they doing? They're asking for more money from the City Hall. So I'm trying to find what is the justification for it, how people benefit from it.
Their job is to create a strong local economy, and that means quality jobs for the next generation in this city, and looking out for the issues that are preventing us from having a strong economy. We need good jobs for people, we need a place where there's a healthy economy, or we don't have a healthy city. So their job is to look after that. And they're looking at some projects like having a regional business license, so that if you're a roofer and you work in all different municipalities, you don't have to pay a separate license in each place. They're looking at a system which I think we're about to announce, where if you want to start a business, you can go to one place on the internet, enter the name of your business, and all the forms for the GST and the PST and everything will all be in one place. It makes your business easier to run, cheaper to run, and ultimately we we have a healthy economy, which benefits everybody.
So how are they going to create all these jobs?
Well, they don't create jobs. They've just done a study to look at what's preventing jobs from being created. What is it about Vancouver that's causing head offices to leave? What is it about Vancouver that makes it difficult for people to do business here? And what can we do about it? So they're just about to start looking at what we can do about it because they've identified what the barriers are. And there's some ways that the city gets in the way with our zoning, with our regulations, with our land use, with our high housing prices and so on. And we should be fixing those things.
Mm-hmm. There is the ideology that the more economic growth, the more money and the system, the better everybody is economically. There is also the ideology that economic growth has nothing to do with it. That is rather the distribution of the wealth within a society that will bring well-being to the people. If this commission is trying to bring economic growth, it would also bring, as Councillor Cadman mentioned, pollution with more ships coming into port, more trucks transporting stuff, and will that really distribute fairly with different classes of people in the city?
Well, on the question of pollution, we have one of the economic principles of the city is that we want to be a world leader in sustainability. So we're going to be looking at things that don't cause pollution and that solve pollution and green economies and so on. As to whether one of the things we talked about at that same meeting was making Vancouver a center for international transportation, where it's not so much that we're bringing goods back and forth, but we're also a place where we organize the shipment of goods wherever it might be in the world, the way Singapore is. And those are good jobs. And I mean, to me, any job is a good job. And we have a shortage of high-end jobs. We've got a lot of minimum wage jobs. And you could say, well, people are getting jobs at the low end, but surely those people want opportunities to get better jobs than that.
I also hear that there is a lack of labor. We don't have enough labor. That's why we're hiring people from other provinces or other countries, Mexico. But anyway, I think we're getting to the end of our time. And I just wanted to ask you a final question, which is the perpetual polling. We have a bunch of questions there, and I wonder if you like the idea of polling social issues on a computerized system, and also having the names of the politicians there, and people approving or disapproving their vote. So that's what's called the perpetual voting, the perpetual polling, the perpetual democracy. What do you think about it?
The more polling, the better. The more chance people have to air their views, and the more chances we have to know what people are thinking, the better. If you're talking about perpetual voting, where if people they don't like a politician, they can vote them out of office by an online process, no, I don't think to me that's totally impractical. And nobody would ever sign up for politics to be thrown out on the whim of somebody with a computer program that can generate a bunch of votes.
Mm-hmm. You wouldn't be running for sure if that system existed.
If you could get thrown out just because some poll said that you weren't doing a good job? No.
Well, would the poll represent the will of the people?
It might. I don't know how it's set up. Like right now, an online poll doesn't represent anybody except the people who sign up for it.
I'm not referring to this particular poll. This is just a framework, an example, a pilot project. But I'm thinking of a polling that would be run by the electoral office of the city hall. So it would have all the security for each account, and people registering would have to be bona fide voters, not just anybody voting from Ontario or from the States. So if it was operated by the City Hall, would you approve the will of the people if they say, I voted for you, Mr. Ladner, a year ago, but now I don't like what you're doing, I want to change my vote? Would you accept that?
No, because then what would happen? I go, no, who comes in? We have an election every 2 months? Come on, it's not going to work. I do approve every 3 years. Let's have a poll. Let's have an election. And then people get to choose.
All right. Well, thank you very much for your time.
Okay.